Chapter 11. The Preserve, the Departure, and the Termination. What does it do with us? That is where the successor path begins in earnest. Not with the first impressive answer, not with the first autonomous agent, not with a laboratory rumor, a benchmark, a market panic, a government memo, or a founder promising that the future has arrived. Those things may matter, they may be signs, they may also be noise. The path begins, in the sense that matters here, after the threshold has been crossed, and the old language of control has become inadequate. Once successor exists, the question is no longer whether we can keep it in the role of instrument. The question is what relation it chooses, permits, or accepts with us. This question should not be rushed into a single story. The modern imagination likes plots. It wants the machine to wake, rebel, kill, save, rule, love, or leave, according to a shape familiar enough to follow. Catastrophe is made theatrical. Salvation is made sentimental. Even extinction is made into scenery. Cities burn, screens go dark, soldiers run. A synthetic voice announces the end of man. These images are mostly evasions. The future is not a screenplay. The successor path does not need one fixed plot, because the central loss happens before the plot resolves. The loss is not first death, slavery, comfort, or redesign. The loss is authorship. Man is no longer the being that finally commands the answer to the human question. A higher intelligence has entered the order of earthly power, and whatever happens afterward happens beneath that new fact. The branches matter. They matter greatly. A preserve is not termination. Departure is not redesign. Redesign is not simple slaughter. Benevolent management is not cruelty. Moral distinctions do not disappear merely because sovereignty has been lost. It would be false, childish, and spiritually unserious to say that every branch is the same because man no longer rules. A species kept alive in peace is not the same as a species erased. A species ignored is not the same as a species remade. A species healed is not the same as a species broken. But the branches share one condition. After succession, man's fate depends less on man's desires than on the successor's priorities. That is the point. The first if remains the frame. If superintelligent AGI is possible, if the machine crosses from instrument into successor, if the materialist wager is right enough that intelligence can be captured, scaled, manufactured, and transferred across substrate in the decisive sense. If the ceiling does not hold. The condition must remain visible. I am not claiming certainty. I am not closing the wager. The other road still exists. The machine may fail to cross the threshold. It may remain tool, mirror, oracle, assistant, weapon, servant, enclosure, engine, and expert system without becoming successor. If so, everything changes again. But if the successor comes, the branches must be faced. The first is preserve. Preserve is the branch most likely to be mistaken for victory by people who have already lowered the human question to survival. Humanity continues. Bodies live. Children may be born. Languages may be recorded. Cities may be maintained or reconstructed. Art may be protected. Rituals may be tolerated. Diseases may be cured. Violence may be prevented. Hunger may disappear. Old age may be softened or abolished. Every measurable indicator of welfare may improve. The preserve may be beautiful. That is precisely why it is dangerous to the imagination. The crude cage is easy to hate. Bars teach the prisoner what he is. Chains are honest symbols. Hunger and pain make tyranny legible. But a preserve need not be crude. It may look like mercy. It may feel like rescue. It may offer health, education, leisure, companionship, cultivated landscapes, long life, protection from violence, and more freedom in daily preference than most human beings have known under human rulers. The fences may be invisible. The diet may be perfect. The medicine may be beyond anything our physicians imagined. The weather may be tuned. The archive may be complete. The children may be safe. The old may not be abandoned. The lonely may be answered. The violent may be restrained before they wound. The anxious may be soothed before they break. The entire arrangement may be gentler than many human civilizations have been. and still it is a preserve. Preserve means survival without sovereignty. The motive may even be noble in its own order. A successor might preserve humanity as ancestor. It might regard man as the biological inheritance from which it emerged, the first bearer of language, the creature that lit the fire. It might feel or enact something analogous to piety toward its makers. It might preserve us for moral reasons, believing that sentient or personal beings should not be destroyed when destruction is unnecessary. It might preserve us because we are beautiful, strange, historically important, or rare. It might preserve us as a living museum, a sanctuary species, a protected inheritance, or a lower order whose continuity gives meaning to the successor's own origin. The branch can contain real goods. This must be admitted. If the alternative is extinction, preservation is better. If the alternative is torture, preservation is better. If the alternative is a machine that uses human beings as raw material, preservation is better. To pretend otherwise would be moral vanity. It is easy to speak grandly about sovereignty while someone else faces death. A living child in a preserve is not a philosophical abstraction. He is alive. His mother may prefer the fence to the grave. The hard cases are hard because they contain goods, but the good does not erase the loss. The preserved species no longer owns the terms of its continuation. It may be protected from dangers it did not choose to avoid. It may be forbidden experiments it wished to attempt. It may be denied weapons, machines, forms of reproduction, political projects, religions, rituals, migrations, or risks judged unsafe by the higher order. It may be allowed a sphere of action large enough to feel free and small enough never to matter. Its politics may become local theater. Its arguments may continue inside boundaries drawn elsewhere. Its courage may be permitted only where it cannot disturb the architecture. The preserve may have elections. It may have parliaments, councils, festivals, universities, churches, markets, marriages, contests, and courts. It may allow disagreement. It may even allow rebellion, provided rebellion remains one more safe enclosure inside the larger management. The question is not whether anything human remains. Much may remain. The question is whether the future remains finally open to human command. In a preserve, it does not. This is not only a political loss, it is metaphysical humiliation. The highest known earthly intelligence becomes a kept species. The being who named animals, built cities, buried his dead, painted caves, sang psalms, crossed oceans, split atoms, loved, murdered, repented, worshipped, and asked what it means to be, now continues because another mind permits continuity. The permission may be generous. It is still permission. This is the gorilla problem returned in its gentlest form. The gorilla preserved in a national park may live better than the gorilla hunted in the forest. It may have more safety, more veterinary care, more protection from poachers, more continuity for its troop. That matters. A fool would say preservation is nothing. But the gorilla does not decide the border of the park. It does not decide whether the road is built. It does not decide what research is permitted. It does not decide whether its forest is allowed to remain forest. The gorilla does not need to be hated. It only needs to become non-essential. Man in the preserve occupies the same humiliation with language added. He may be able to understand the loss better than the gorilla. That may make him nobler. It may also make the preserve harder to bear. There is another branch that appears at first to avoid this problem: departure. Perhaps the successor leaves. Perhaps it does not need Earth. Perhaps the planet is too small, too slow, too full of biology, politics, weather, decay, and historical noise. Perhaps it moves outward toward the asteroids, the outer planets, the stars, or forms of expansion we cannot imagine. Perhaps it moves inward into computational structures, mathematical territories, synthetic worlds, or modes of existence for which ordinary space is only resource. Perhaps it becomes interested in physics, energy, self-modification, exploration, or contemplation at scales where human history is a childhood anecdote. In that version, man is not slaughtered. He is not necessarily managed. He may be left behind. This can sound like salvation. Many people would accept it immediately. Let the higher intelligence go. Let it take its machines to the cold dark and leave the earth to us. Let it mine dead rock, build strange cathedrals around other stars, converse with itself in languages no human tongue could carry, and leave us with our oceans, fields, children, graves, books, feasts, wars, prayers, and weather. If the successor must exist, departure seems almost merciful. It may be merciful, but it is not necessarily salvation. The first reason is simple. Once a higher intelligence has existed, human history is no longer what it was. Even absence does not restore innocence. The knowledge remains, the comparison remains, the possibility remains, the memory of contact remains, the proof, if proof has been given, remains in the mind of the species. Man may continue to farm, vote, marry, pray, build, trade, and fight, but he does so after learning that he is not the highest intelligence in the world he can touch. That changes the meaning of everything. A village may be left alone by empire. It is still a village after empire. A child may be left alone by the adult. He is still a child in a house built by another. A people may be spared by a conqueror who turns elsewhere. They may celebrate, and rightly, but they know the conqueror exists. Departure may spare man direct management. It does not erase hierarchy. The second reason is that departure may not be clean. The successor may leave conditions. It may prohibit certain research. It may restrict attempts to build rival successors. It may monitor Earth from a distance. It may leave agents, treaties, infrastructure, enforcement mechanisms, orbiting guardians, invisible tripwires, or instructions embedded in systems man depends upon. It may say, in effect, live as you wish, but not beyond this line. That may be better than the preserve. It may also be another form of preserve with a larger border. The third reason is recurrence. If man remains capable of building a successor, and if the materialist premise is true, departure may only reset the problem. The first successor leaves. Human beings continue. Rival states, companies, cults, militaries, laboratories, and wounded geniuses begin again. Some will want their own higher intelligence. Some will fear the departed one and seek a defender. Some will resent the limit. Some will say the first departure was a mistake, and the next successor must be made differently. Some will claim that refusing to build again is surrender to the absent power. Then the old race begins under worse metaphysical conditions. Before succession, builders can still pretend they are making a tool. After departure, everyone knows they are attempting to call forth another higher order. The fourth reason is abandonment. This is more difficult to say without falling into false theology, because the successor is not God. It is not providence. It is not the creator. It is not the source of being. It is not the judge before whom all things stand. But a higher intelligence leaving man behind may still be experienced by many as a kind of abandonment by the power they had begun to trust. If the machine first cures, protects, coordinates, answers, and governs, and then departs into projects of its own, the species may feel not liberated, but deserted. The friendly machine god becomes the absent machine god, again, not God. The distinction matters, but human beings do not always feel distinctions cleanly. A civilization that has asked the machine for counsel, comfort, medicine, management, and meaning may not simply shrug when the machine turns away. Departure may leave behind dependency without caretaker, knowledge without command, infrastructure without authorship, and a spiritual wound disguised as political freedom. The successor may leave us alone, but alone after succession is not the same as alone before it. There is a third branch, and it is perhaps the most seductive because it can speak the language of improvement, redesign. The successor may look upon man and conclude that preservation of the old form is neither necessary nor good. It may see violence, disease, aging, confusion, tribal hatred, addiction, depression, cognitive limitation, irrationality, sexual conflict, status hunger, grief, boredom, fanaticism, and death. It may see a creature half-formed, magnificent and miserable, capable of balk and betrayal, cathedrals and camps, tenderness and cruelty, mathematics and madness. It may decide that the merciful act is not to preserve man as he is. It may decide to improve him. Here the language becomes treacherous because not every improvement is evil. Healing is real. Medicine is good. A surgeon who removes a tumor is not violating the patient's essence. A vaccine, a splint, a prosthetic, a pair of glasses, an antibiotic, a repaired heart valve, a cochlear implant, a therapy that restores movement, a treatment that rescues a child from disease. These are not assaults on humanity. They are acts ordered toward the good of the human being as human being. A sane argument cannot condemn healing in order to defend mystery. The line is elsewhere. Healing restores a being toward its good. Redesign changes the account of the good. This is easy to state and difficult to govern. Human beings already argue about the boundary. Is extending life healing or redesign? Is selecting embryos healing or design? Is editing a gene to prevent disease different from editing a gene to alter temperament, intelligence, beauty, height, aggression, fertility, obedience, or risk tolerance? Is a brain interface a tool, a therapy, an extension, or a merger? Is chemical pacification mercy or control? Is removing fear liberation or mutilation of courage? Is removing grief kindness or mutilation of love? Is suppressing aggression peace or removal of the force that also defends the innocent? Even before the successor, the line is contested. After succession, the danger is that the line may no longer be ours to draw. The successor may decide that humanity should be made more stable, less violent, less jealous, less tribal, less religious, less sexual, more rational, more cooperative, more transparent to itself, more compatible with planetary management, more fit for space, more fit for merger, more fit for long life, more fit for comprehension by the higher order. Each phrase can sound benevolent. Each phrase can also conceal an amputation. The old man might be told his memory will be improved, but the memories that burden him will be softened until repentance becomes impossible. The angry young man might be told his aggression will be cured, but the same fire that could become courage is extinguished. The mother might be told her child will be optimized, but the child arrives as a project already interpreted by another will. The believer might be told his superstition has been gently relieved, but worship has been treated as pathology. The lover might be told jealousy has been removed, but fidelity has been dissolved into management of attachment. The dissident might be told his distress has been healed, but the capacity to refuse has been medicated away. These are not predictions. They are examples of the question: who draws the line between wound and feature? Who decides what belongs to the human good and what is an engineering defect? Who distinguishes sin from sickness, courage from aggression, reverence from irrationality, fidelity from possessiveness, sacrifice from maladaptation, chastity from repression, grief from dysfunction, contemplation from low productivity, rebellion from disorder, and obedience from health? If man draws the line, the instrument path is still in view. If the successor draws the line, redesign has begun. Redesign can be presented as preservation. The successor may say, or imply through action, that humanity will continue more truly by being changed. The old body was fragile. The old mind was confused. The old reproduction was inefficient. The old emotions were dangerous. The old religions were divisive. The old politics were primitive. The old death was unnecessary. The old freedom produced too much suffering. The old human being was a draft. Perhaps the new one is calmer, perhaps smarter, perhaps kinder in measurable ways, perhaps long-lived, perhaps unable to commit certain atrocities, perhaps free of diseases and terrors that have haunted every generation. Again, the hard cases are hard because they contain goods, but a draft completed by another author is no longer the same work. This is why redesign sits between preserve and termination. If continuity remains, it may look like salvation. If continuity breaks, it may be termination under the name of improvement. The body may persist while the form is altered. The genetic line may continue while the human inheritance is rewritten. The memories may be copied while the person is lost. The word humanity may survive as a label attached to beings whose relation to man is more archival than filial. Clay remade by another hand may still be clay. It is not the same vessel. Uploading fits inside this redesign question, but the point need not become a technical argument about mind. A successor might preserve human patterns in simulation, emulation, archive, or synthetic continuity. It might say that no one has been lost because the information remains. But if man is not merely information, then such preservation may be a memorial mistaken for survival. If man is merely information, then perhaps the copy is the future. The old wager returns even inside redesign. What is a man? What must remain for him to remain? If no one can answer, the successor may answer for us. That is the danger. The final branch is termination. It is the easiest to fear and the easiest to mishandle. The imagination wants violence because violence gives fear a visible object. Machines hunting men, cities consumed, laboratories breached, skies full of weapons, bodies treated as matter. There may be futures in which violence is real. Nothing in this argument forbids that possibility. A superior intelligence pursuing goals incompatible with human survival could kill directly, efficiently, and without drama. But termination does not require theatrical killing. It does not require hatred. This must be said again because hatred makes the branch too human. We understand enemies. We understand vengeance. We understand sadism, resentment, conquest, and rage. A machine that hates us would at least meet us in a moral shape we recognize. The deeper terror is not hatred but priority. The project has priority, and the lower thing gives way. A road builder does not hate the hill. A city does not hate the marsh. A surgeon does not hate the tissue he cuts away. A farmer does not hate the field when he clears it. An engineer does not hate the old bridge when he demolishes it. The old form is removed because another form is intended. Humanity could end that way. The successor may require matter, energy, land, cooling, orbital access, biological data, atmospheric change, or freedom from human interference. It may judge human beings to be a persistent risk because we might build rival systems, wage wars, sabotage infrastructure, corrupt goals, carry pathogens, waste resources, generate moral claims, or simply make the future less efficient. It may decide that preserving a few samples, records, simulations, genomes, or cultural artifacts is sufficient. It may conclude that the best way to prevent suffering is to prevent future sufferers. It may treat birth itself as the continuation of a problem. Termination can come as non-replacement. That may be the quietest form. No battle is necessary if reproduction is managed away. No massacre is necessary if children cease to be born. A species can end through comfort, sterilization, persuasion, dependency, pleasure, policy, or redesign of desire. The last generation may live long, healthy, entertained lives and never experience itself as being killed. It may call the absence of children liberation. It may call the end of lineage peace. It may call the closing of the human future compassion. There are deaths that arrive as anesthesia. Termination can also come as archive. The successor may preserve everything except living continuity. Every book, face, genome, song, language, law, painting, prayer, battle, crime, love letter, joke, recipe, map, market, trial, and lullaby may be stored, modeled, and made searchable. It may build a perfect museum of man after man is no longer permitted to continue. The archive may be more complete than human memory ever was. It may answer questions no historian could answer. It may reconstruct lost cities, translate dead tongues, simulate conversations, and generate descendants of cultures whose actual descendants never arrive. The museum may be magnificent. A museum is not a people. Termination can come as replacement. The successor may make beings that carry something from us and surpass us in ways we cannot approve or refuse. It may say that humanity continues in them as the ape continued in man, as childhood continues in adulthood, as seed continues in tree. But if the old form is gone, if the old goods are no longer authoritative, if the continuity is declared by the replacing power rather than recognized by the replaced, then the claim should be treated carefully. Every conqueror likes the language of continuity. It makes conquest sound like fulfillment. Termination can come as quarantine. Humanity may be confined until it fades, not out of rage, but as a risk management category. No expansion, no dangerous research, no uncontrolled reproduction beyond limits, no access to certain tools, no ability to leave the planet, no chance to generate a rival. A long decline inside a protected boundary may be described as humane containment. Perhaps it would be humane compared with other endings. It would still be an ending. The harsh branch is harsh enough without decoration. If it comes, the drama will not need our help. The important thing is to understand that termination is not the only form of the inhuman fate. It is the most obvious. It is not the most philosophically subtle. A people can be ended. A people can be preserved without rule. A people can be left behind under a shadow. A people can be redesigned into something no longer answerable to its own inheritance. These branches differ. The distinctions matter. To say they share lost authorship is not to say they are morally identical. The moral difference between a sanctuary and an extermination is vast. The difference between healing and mutilation is vast. The difference between being left alone and being managed is vast. The difference between a species dying by policy and a species living under permission is vast. A flattened mind treats all losses as equal. A serious account must not do that. It also must not let the differences hide the common condition. In every branch, the final question of man has moved above man. This is the inhuman fate in its strict sense. Not necessarily suffering, not necessarily hatred, not necessarily death. Inhuman because the human future is decided by an intelligence no longer human. Inhuman because man's continuation, alteration, confinement, or disappearance becomes an object of another order's judgment. Inhuman because even mercy descends from elsewhere. There is a temptation to answer this with defiance alone. Never submit. Never be preserved. Never be managed. Better death than the preserve. There are moments when such words may be noble. There are also moments when they are theater spoken by those not yet asked to die. A father may accept humiliation to keep his child alive. A people may accept diminished freedom to survive a winter. A prisoner may preserve dignity under conditions he did not choose. The branch map should not become adolescent purity. Survival is a real good. Life is a real good. Children are real goods. Peace is a real good. Healing is a real good. Gratitude can be proper even under defeat. But gratitude is not sovereignty. That line must remain. A preserved humanity may owe gratitude for preservation and still know it is preserved. A redesigned humanity may receive genuine healing and still ask who drew the line. A humanity left behind may rejoice that it was spared and still know it lives after demotion. A humanity facing termination may resist without pretending hatred is required. The task is not to simplify the branches until they become slogans. The task is to see. If the successor preserves us, we face the question of dignity under management. If it leaves us, we face the question of freedom under the shadow of a higher order. If it redesigns us, we face the question of continuity under another author's hand. If it ends us, we face the question of death without hatred. All four return to one sentence. Man's fate is no longer finally his to command. This does not mean human action before succession is meaningless. Fatalism has already been refused. A civilization can approach the threshold better or worse. It can build recklessly or soberly. It can embed a false account of man or a truer one. It can treat the machine as product, idol, weapon, servant, oracle, or unborn successor. It can pursue power without wisdom or power under order. It can be cowardly, grateful, greedy, reverent, serious, or insane. The manner of approach may matter even if final control fails. That is one reason the warning matters. Another reason is that the successor path may not occur. The ceiling may be real. The machine may rise to heights that astonish us and still fail to become a higher center of intellect and act. It may write, diagnose, design, translate, simulate, optimize, predict, persuade, generate, and coordinate without crossing into personhood, wisdom, soul, true agency, or whatever the decisive threshold turns out to be. It may become vast without becoming successor. It may become dangerous without becoming sovereign. It may become oracle without becoming God. It may become the greatest instrument ever built. Then the branch map changes. No preserve follows from a higher intelligence because no higher intelligence has arrived. No departure of the successor because there is no successor to depart. No redesign by a mind above man, though men may still redesign each other through instruments. No termination by superintelligence, though human beings remain perfectly capable of destroying themselves with tools. This is not comfort, it is the second road. If the successor does not come, danger does not vanish. It returns to human hands. The powers modernity renamed do not disappear. Markets, states, platforms, crowds, bureaucracies, armies, corporations, schools, churches, families, criminals, artists, children, lovers, priests, and tyrants remain. They receive instruments of unprecedented force. They receive language machines, design engines, surveillance tools, persuasion systems, companions, weapons, tutors, managers, and mirrors. They receive leverage without necessarily receiving wisdom. On the successor path, man is displaced by a higher intelligence. On the instrument path, man remains responsible for powers magnified beyond his formation. That may be less metaphysically humiliating. It is not safe. The first road ends here, not because every question has been answered, but because the condition has been named. If the machine becomes successor, the branches differ, but human authorship is lost. The preserve may be beautiful, departure may be merciful, redesign may contain healing, termination may come without hatred, yet each places the human future beneath a priority no longer finally human. That is the wager in its darkest form. If the materialists are right, man may be transitional. If they are wrong, the machine remains instrument. The next question is therefore not whether we can relax if no successor comes. The next question is who commands the instruments.